because I realized that the wife and family were paying for the sins of the priest of the house. And so I looked at my heart. I went to Don. He was my husband. I went over to him in the house. He was in there taking his lunch break. And I said, "Hey, Don, John's wife is here and her family is hungry." And John was like, "Well, John's a thief, and Don's like, "Well, we're not helping." And I said, "Look, Don," I said, "the family should not be paying for the sins of this man. They're hungry. We need to give them some food." And so after I said that, Don's heart melted, and we sent one of our Tanzanian coworkers to go to the local shop to pick up about a month's worth of food, because we figured at least within a month they should be able to somehow get back on their feet and find a way to get help. And so we had one of the Tanzanians deliver it over to John, well, his family. And I remember seeing John's face so clearly the morning after, Katrina hit New Orleans. And it wasn't the morning after, but it was the week of that. And I remember crying, and I said, "God, help us. And we don't know what we're going to do, Father. How, I don't know. I trust you, but God, this is hard for me. It's scary." And God said to me so quickly, "Because you have heard the cry of the poor, I have heard your cry." It was almost as if, and I'm telling you this and being completely honest, it's one of the only times, it hasn't happened that loudly ever before, and it hasn't ever been that loud ever again, where it was almost like the audible voice of God. And it was so real to me when he said that. "Because you have heard the cry of the poor, I have heard your cry." And then he said that he was going to provide, like in the days of Elijah, that he is already spoken to a widow. And I'm like, okay. I'm beside myself in tears. I think I got a puddle of tears and all the other goo that comes with it. And I am just beside myself, because all of a sudden I've got the God of the universe speaking to me and telling me everything's going to be okay. So I take my time. Eventually I got up, and eventually I was able to tell Don. It was hard to tell him because I could hardly speak, because when you hear the audible or close, what I perceived as possible audible voice of God, it wrecks you. It's you'll never be the same again, because you realize this is God speaking beyond the shadow of a doubt, and you are not going to ever forget that. It's ever going to be in your history. And so when that happened, I said, "Okay, God, I have no idea what's happening, and I trust you." And so I told Don, and Don and I look at that, and I said, "God, had I not obeyed the voice of compassion, I wouldn't have had what I consider fire insurance or flood insurance during the disaster of Katrina."